Zexor pressed his three-fingered hand against the viewing panel of the observation deck, his violet eyes widening as he watched the chaos unfold on the planet below. The emergency transmission had come through only moments ago, a human settlement on fire, rescue teams scrambling, and in the middle of it all, a perfect opportunity to test his controversial theory. "Professor, the shuttle is ready," his assistant Nalira said, her translucent skin glowing with a faint blue hue that betrayed her excitement. "The observation team is prepared for immediate deployment." Zexor nodded, his elongated head bobbing slightly as he turned from the viewing panel. "Remember, this is strictly observation. We are here to document, not intervene." As the foremost xenoanthropologist from the Galactic Academy on Centauri Prime, Zexor had spent 15 cycles studying the curious species known as humans. His latest research paper, Self-Preservation Instincts in Terran Species, had created quite a stir among his academic peers. In it, he proposed that despite humans' apparent recklessness, they possessed an advanced sense of danger assessment that kept their fragile species alive despite their biological limitations. "But what about our emergency protocols?" asked Nalira as they boarded the shuttle. "We will maintain our distance," Zexor replied firmly. "This is a unique opportunity to observe humans responding to a crisis situation in real time." The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, its cloaking technology ensuring they remained undetected by the primitive human scanning systems. As they approached the burning settlement, a small town in what humans called Montana, Zexor felt a flutter of excitement in his secondary heart. Field research was rare, especially on planets still under the Galactic Non-Interference Directive. The town below was in chaos. A residential building had caught fire, flames leaping from windows as human emergency responders worked to contain the blaze. Zexor instructed the pilot to hover at a safe distance while recording everything. "Look at their organized response," Zexor commented, pointing a slender finger at the humans below. "See how they calculate risk, how they establish safety perimeters. This confirms my theory about their danger assessment capabilities." Nalira adjusted the observation equipment. "The readings show the structure is highly unstable. Their primitive scanners must be indicating the same." "Precisely," said Zexor. "They will maintain their safety protocols. Humans may be emotional creatures, but they understand self-preservation." Just as the words left his mouth, a commotion erupted below. A human female broke through the safety perimeter, screaming and pointing at the burning building. The emergency responders tried to restrain her, but she continued gesturing frantically toward an upper window. "What is happening?" Nalira asked, zooming in the visual feed. Zexor leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "The female appears distressed. Perhaps a possession of value remains in the structure." Then they saw it. A small human face appeared in the window, barely visible through the smoke. A child. "The offspring is still inside," Zexor noted clinically, recording the observation into his data pad. "Now, we will see the responders implement their rescue protocols while maintaining their safety perimeters." But what happened next defied all of Zexor's predictions. A male human not wearing any protective equipment suddenly broke free from the crowd. Before anyone could stop him, he ran directly toward the burning building. "What is he doing?" Zexor gasped, his usual academic detachment momentarily forgotten. "The structure is collapsing." His sensory organs must be detecting the danger. They watched in astonishment as the human male disappeared into the burning building. "This contradicts your entire thesis, Professor," Nalira said quietly. Zexor couldn't respond. He stared at the monitors, transfixed by the scene unfolding below. According to his readings, the temperature inside the building had reached levels that would cause severe damage to human tissue. The structural integrity was failing. By all logical assessments, the human had just sentenced himself to death. "I don't understand," Zexor finally said. "This defies all rational behavior patterns." 3 agonizing minutes passed. The human emergency teams were preparing to enter the building when suddenly the male emerged from the smoke, carrying the small child in his arms. His clothing was burning in places, his skin visibly damaged, yet he continued moving away from the building. As the human handed the child to the emergency responders, the building behind him partially collapsed. The timing couldn't have been closer. He should be dead, Zexor whispered. By every calculation, he should be dead. Nalira looked at her professor. What does this mean for your theory? Zexor didn't answer immediately. He watched as the injured human received medical attention, the child safely reunited with the female who had been screaming earlier. I need to know more, he finally said. Pilot, take us down. Activate the full camouflage systems. Professor, Nalira protested. The non-interference directive, we won't interfere, Zexor assured her. But I must get closer. I must understand what just happened. The shuttle landed in a wooded area a short distance from the human settlement. Using their personal cloaking devices, Zexor and Nalira approached the scene on foot. The emergency responders had set up a treatment area, and they could see the injured human male being attended to. Zexor activated his universal translator and moved close enough to hear the conversations. Jesus, Logan, what were you thinking? One of the medical responders was saying as they treated the human's burns. The injured human Logan grimaced in pain as they applied something to his wounds. Heard Sarah screaming about her boy. Didn't think, just ran. You could have been killed, another human said. Better me than the kid, Logan replied, wincing as they continued treating him. Zexor recorded everything, his mind racing. This made no sense. The human had willfully disregarded his own safety, running directly into lethal danger for the offspring of another. Professor, Nalira whispered, I think we should leave. We're too exposed here. But Zexor wasn't listening. He was focused entirely on the injured human, trying to understand the motivation behind such an irrational act. The woman whose child had been saved approached Logan, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you, she said, the child clutched tightly in her arms. You saved my Billy, you saved my whole world. Logan shook his head. Anyone would have done the same, Sarah. But they didn't, she said. You did. As Zexor watched this exchange, something shifted in his understanding. There was a variable he hadn't accounted for in his research, something that seemed to override the self-preservation instinct in humans. He was so absorbed in his observations that he failed to notice the change in wind direction. A gust blew through the emergency area, disrupting the localized field of his cloaking device for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. The human called Logan suddenly looked up, staring directly at where Zexor stood. For a moment, their eyes met three-lidded violet against human brown. What the hell? Logan said, trying to rise from the treatment table. Sir, please remain still, the medical responder urged. You've suffered second-degree burns and smoke inhalation. There's someone there, Logan insisted, still staring. Zexor froze, then slowly backed away. Professor, we need to leave now, Nalira hissed urgently. This time, Zexor agreed. They retreated to their shuttle and quickly took off, returning to their orbiting research vessel. Once aboard, Zexor sat in his private quarters, reviewing the data they had collected. His mandibles clicked softly in thought a habit when he was deeply troubled. It doesn't make sense, he murmured to himself. They should prioritize their own survival. Their species has no redundant organs, no backup respiratory systems, fragile dermal layers. Everything about their biology suggests they should be risk-averse. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he called. Nalira stepped inside, holding a data pad. Professor, I've been analyzing the biometric readings we collected from the human called Logan. You might want to see this. She handed him the pad. Zexor studied the readings' elevated heart rate, adrenaline surge, cortisol levels through the roof. These readings confirm he was aware of the danger, Zexor said. His body was signaling extreme threat awareness. Yes, Nalira agreed. But look at the neural scan. Zexor scrolled to the next page and paused. The human's brain had shown activity in regions associated with decision-making, but also in areas linked to emotional processing. This suggests, Nalira continued, that he made a conscious choice to override his survival instincts. Zexor set down the pad. But why? Why would a species evolve to ignore survival instincts? It contradicts everything we understand about evolutionary biology. Nalira hesitated. Professor, I have a theory, but it's unorthodox. At this point, I welcome unorthodox, Zexor replied. What if their apparent disregard for personal safety in certain situations isn't a flaw but a feature? What if it's actually an advanced form of species preservation, just not at the individual level? Zexor considered this. You're suggesting their risk assessment includes variables beyond personal survival. Exactly, Nalira said. The female called the offspring my whole world. What if humans calculate value differently than we do? What if their survival algorithm includes the well-being of others, particularly their young? That would be extraordinary, Zexor said slowly. It would mean their entire decision-making process is fundamentally different from what we assumed. Zexor stood up abruptly. I need to know more. We need a closer observation subject. Professor, you can't be suggesting the humans saw me, Zexor interrupted. Logan. He saw through the cloaking field. This provides us with a unique opportunity. Nalira's skin paled to an almost white hue. You want to make contact. That would violate every protocol we have. Not official contact, Zexor clarified. Just one curious scientist to one interesting subject. Despite Nalira's continued protests, Zexor's mind was made up. The next day, as Logan Hendricks was released from the local medical facility, a nondescript human-looking individual approached him in the parking lot. Zexor had used the most advanced biomimetic disguise technology available to the Academy, creating a human appearance that wouldn't attract undue attention. His 3 fingers were concealed within specially designed gloves, his height reduced, and his violet eyes hidden behind colored lenses. Excuse me, Zexor said, approaching Logan cautiously. Mr. Hendricks, Logan turned, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his bandaged burns. His right arm was in a sling and parts of his face were covered with medical patches. Do I know you? No, Zexor replied. My name is Zach. I'm a researcher studying human behavior in crisis situations. I heard about what you did yesterday, and I was hoping I might ask you a few questions. Logan looked skeptical. You, a reporter, already told them I don't want any stories. Not a reporter, Zexor assured him. I'm interested in understanding why you did what you did, from a scientific perspective. Logan studied him for a moment. Scientific perspective, huh? Well, I need coffee if I'm going to be part of science. There's a diner across the street if you want to talk. Zexor felt a flutter of excitement. That would be acceptable, I mean. That would be great. The diner was a simple establishment with what Zexor recognized as traditional human food preparation equipment. They sat in a booth, and Logan ordered coffee while Zexor requested water, not wanting to risk consuming human food with his disguised biology. So, Logan said after taking a sip of his coffee, what exactly do you want to know? Zexor had prepared his questions carefully. When you ran into the burning building, were you aware of the danger to yourself? Logan snorted. Of course I was. I'm not an idiot. The place was about to come down. Then why did you do it? Because Sarah's kid was in there. Logan said it as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. But the child is not your offspring, Zexor pressed. You risked your life for another's genetic continuation. Logan gave him an odd look. You talk weird, you know that. And what's with the genetic continuation stuff? It was a kid, a scared little boy, doesn't matter whose kid it was. Zexor leaned forward. But from an evolutionary standpoint, your actions were counterproductive to your own survival. Look, I don't know what kind of research you're doing, but it sounds pretty cold, Logan said, frowning. When you see someone in trouble, especially a kid you help. That's just what people do. But not all people ran into the fire, Zexor pointed out. Only you. Logan shrugged, then grimaced at the pain the movement caused. Maybe I was closest. Maybe I just reacted first. I don't know. It wasn't some big heroic decision. I just did it. Zexor was fascinated. You're saying your decision to disregard your own safety was instinctual rather than calculated. I guess so, Logan said. Look, have you ever been in a situation where someone needed help, where every second counted? Zexor thought about it. In his culture, such situations were always handled by specialized response units. Individual intervention was considered inefficient and dangerous. I cannot say that I have. Well, when you are, you'll understand. There's no time to think about yourself. You just act. As they continued talking, Zexor learned that Logan was a construction worker with no specialized emergency training. He had no particular connection to Sarah or her son beyond being neighbors in the same apartment complex. He had suffered second-degree burns on 15% of his body, a dislocated shoulder, and smoke inhalation that had damaged his lungs. "The doctors say I'll make a full recovery," Logan said. "Might have some scars, but that's not important." "And if you had to make the choice again?" Zexor asked. Knowing the pain and injury that resulted, Logan didn't hesitate. "I'd do exactly the same thing." After nearly an hour of conversation, Logan checked the time on his communication device. "I should get going. My sister's coming to help me out while I recover." Zexor nodded. "Thank you for your time. You've given me much to consider." As Logan stood to leave, he paused. "You know, there's something familiar about you. Have we met before?" Zexor felt a moment of panic. "I do not believe so." Logan stared at him intently. "Yesterday, during all the chaos. I could have sworn I saw someone who didn't look quite right. Was that you?" "I was not present at the fire," Zexor said carefully. Logan continued to study him for a moment longer, then shook his head. "Must have been the smoke messing with my head. Take care, Zach." As Logan left the diner, Zexor remained seated, processing everything he had learned. The humans' responses challenged every assumption he had made in his research. It wasn't that humans ignored danger, they were fully aware of it. They simply factored in variables that Zexor's species would consider irrational. Back on the research vessel, Zexor found Nalira waiting anxiously for his return. "Well," she asked as soon as he had deactivated his human disguise. "What did you learn?" Zexor sat heavily in his chair. "Everything and nothing. He was completely aware of the danger. He knew he could die. He suffered significant injuries, and yet he said he would do it again without hesitation." "Did he explain why?" He said. "That's just what people do." Zexor shook his head. As if it were some universal constant, like gravity. Nalira considered this. Perhaps for them it is. Over the next several days, Zexor immersed himself in human historical records and literature, searching for patterns. What he found astonished him. Countless examples throughout human history showed individuals sacrificing themselves for others, not just for offspring or family members, but for strangers, for ideals, for abstract concepts like freedom or justice. "It's not just this one human," Zexor told Nalira as they reviewed his findings. "It's a recurring behavior across their species. They call people who do this heroes, but the behavior itself seems almost ordinary to them, expected even." "But it contradicts basic survival instincts," Nalira argued. "That's just it," Zexor replied. "I think we've been defining survival too narrowly. For humans, survival of the individual seems secondary to survival of their connections, their relationships, their communities, their values." Zexor gestured to the screen displaying his research. "Look at this pattern. Humans will face almost certain death to protect not just their own offspring, but any child. They'll risk everything for abstract concepts like justice or freedom. Their decision-making incorporates variables we've never considered relevant to survival calculations." Nalira looked thoughtful. "So when the human Logan ran into the fire, he wasn't ignoring the danger," Zexor finished. "He was calculating a different equation altogether, one where his own survival wasn't the primary variable." "That's beautiful," Nalira said softly, "and terrifying." Zexor nodded. "It explains so much about their species, their rapid advancement, despite their physical limitations, their ability to form complex societies, their resilience in the face of catastrophes. The Galactic Academy needs to hear about this," Nalira said. "It changes everything we thought we knew about humans." "Yes," Zexor agreed, "but I think I need more data first, one more observation." Which was how, 3 days later, Zexor found himself once again in his human disguise, this time at the small ground-level dwelling where Logan was recovering. He had obtained the address from public records and had been watching the building, waiting for an opportunity to speak with Logan again. When he approached the door and activated the signaling device humans called a doorbell, it was not Logan who answered, but a female human. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking at him curiously. "I am Zach," Zexor said. I spoke with Logan a few days ago. I was hoping to ask him a few more questions for my research. The woman smiled. Oh, you must be the behavioral scientist he mentioned. I'm Gina, Logan's sister. Come in. He's resting on the couch. Zexor entered the dwelling, carefully observing everything. The interior was simple but comfortable, with various artifacts and images that suggested personal significance rather than practical utility. Logan was reclined on a cushioned piece of furniture, his bandages changed but still covering significant portions of his visible skin. He looked up as Zexor entered. Hey, it's the science guy, Logan said. Didn't expect to see you again. I had some follow-up questions, if you don't mind, Zexor replied. Logan gestured to a chair. Have a seat, not like I'm going anywhere. Gina excused herself to prepare some food in the adjacent room, leaving them to talk. How is your recovery progressing? Zexor asked. Slow, Logan admitted. Burns hurt like hell and my lungs feel like I've been smoking for 50 years. But the doctors say I'm doing better than expected. Zexor nodded. I've been thinking about our conversation. You said that helping others, even at great personal risk, is just what people do. But that contradicts basic survival instincts. Logan shrugged his good shoulder. Maybe, but humans aren't just about surviving. We're about living, you know, and part of living is caring about other people, even to the point of self-sacrifice. Sometimes, yeah. Logan looked at him curiously. Don't you feel that way? Wouldn't you risk yourself to save someone you care about? Zexor considered the question carefully. In his culture, such decisions were always made collectively, weighing the value of each individual to the community. Personal sacrifice was considered inefficient. I am not sure. Logan's expression softened. Well, maybe that's something to think about. Life's not worth much if you're only looking out for yourself. Before Zexor could respond, there was a knock at the door. Gina went to answer it, and a moment later, a female human with a small child entered the living room. Sarah, Logan said, attempting to sit up straighter. And Billy. How are you guys doing? The woman Sarah approached Logan with the child. We're doing okay. The insurance is covering a hotel until we can find a new place, but we wanted to come thank you again. She turned to the child. Billy, remember what we talked about? The small human stepped forward, clutching something in his hands. Thank you for saving me, mister. Logan, he said in a high-pitched voice. I made you this. He handed Logan what appeared to be a crude representation created from colored materials. Logan took it carefully. Is this me carrying you out of the fire? Billy nodded solemnly. You're a superhero. Logan's eyes glistened with moisture. I'm no superhero, buddy, just glad you're okay. Sarah placed her hand on Logan's uninjured shoulder. You are to us. We'll never forget what you did. As Zexor observed this interaction, something profound shifted in his understanding. The connection between these humans was almost tangible, not just biological, not just social, but something deeper. After Sarah and Billy left, Logan noticed Zexor watching him intently. What? Logan asked. I think I understand now, Zexor said slowly. Your willingness to face danger wasn't irrational at all. It was the most rational choice by your values. Logan looked surprised. That's a pretty deep takeaway from watching me talk to a kid. Perhaps, Zexor agreed, but it has given me much to consider about what it means to be human. Logan studied him for a moment. You know, you're a strange guy, Zach, but I like you. As Zexor prepared to leave, Logan called after him. Hey, one question for your research. If you saw someone in danger, really bad danger, what would you do? Zexor paused at the door. Just days ago, his answer would have been simple. Alert the proper authorities and maintain a safe distance. Now, he wasn't so certain. I hope, he said carefully, that I would help. Logan nodded. Good answer. Back on the research vessel, Zexor finalized his report for the Galactic Academy. His conclusions would be controversial, challenging centuries of established xenoanthropological theory about human behavior. Humans do not ignore danger, he wrote. Rather, they incorporate variables into their risk assessment that our species has never considered relevant. Their apparent recklessness is actually an advanced form of species preservation that extends beyond genetic lineage to encompass community, shared values, and abstract ideals. He paused, then added, in some ways, this makes them more vulnerable as individuals, but extraordinarily resilient as a species. It is not a weakness, as previously assumed, but possibly their greatest strength. As Zexor prepared to submit his findings, Nalira entered his quarters with an urgent expression. "Professor, we've received a priority communication from the Academy. They're demanding our immediate return. Apparently, they've detected unauthorized contact with the human subjects." Zexor sighed. "I expected as much. I'll face whatever consequences come. The research was worth it." "There's more," Nalira said hesitantly. "Long-range scanners have detected a fire in the human settlement again near Logan Hendrix's dwelling." Zexor felt a coldness spread through him. "Show me." The monitor displayed a residential area with several buildings ablaze. Emergency response vehicles were already on the scene, but the fire was spreading rapidly. "Can we locate Logan?" Zexor asked urgently. Nalira manipulated the controls. Thermal scanning shows 2 human signatures inside his dwelling. The fire hasn't reached it yet, but the path to safety is blocked. Without hesitation, Zexor grabbed his portable cloaking device. "Prepare the shuttle, Professor," Nalira exclaimed. "The non-interference directive, I know the regulations," Zexor interrupted. "But sometimes there are more important considerations than rules." As the shuttle descended toward the burning human settlement, Zexor found himself experiencing an unfamiliar emotion. Fear, yes, but not for himself. Fear for Logan, for Gina, for the humans he had come to know. Was this what Logan had felt when he ran into the fire? This overwhelming concern for another being's welfare. The shuttle landed in a concealed location, and Zexor activated his human disguise. "Stay with the shuttle," he instructed Nalira. "If I'm not back in 20 minutes, return to the vessel without me." "Professor, this is madness," Nalira protested. "You're not equipped for this environment. Your respiratory system can't handle the smoke." Zexor pulled out a small device from his equipment case. "This atmospheric filter should provide temporary protection, and I've studied the building's structure. I know what to do." Before Nalira could argue further, Zexor exited the shuttle and ran toward the burning area. Emergency responders were focused on containing the larger fires, unaware that Logan's dwelling was now threatened by advancing flames. As Zexor approached, he could see that the main exit was already blocked by fire. Using his scanner, he confirmed 2 human life signs inside, likely Logan and Gina, possibly trapped due to Logan's injuries limiting his mobility. Zexor circled to the rear of the dwelling and found a window. Using a tool from his belt, he quickly cut through the primitive locking mechanism and pushed it open. Inside, the air was already thick with smoke. His filter would only work for a few minutes in these conditions. He moved quickly through what appeared to be a food preparation area and into the main living space. There he found Logan attempting to help Gina, who appeared to be unconscious on the floor. Logan looked up in shock as Zexor entered. "Zach, what the hell are you doing here?" "The exit is blocked," Zexor said, moving toward them. "But there's a way out through the rear window. What happened to her?" "Smoke inhalation," Logan explained, coughing. "She was trying to help me get out when she collapsed. I can barely move with these burns." "I will assist," Zexor said, bending down to lift Gina. His species had significantly greater strength than humans, even in his disguised form. He easily lifted the unconscious woman. "This way," he directed, leading Logan back toward the kitchen. The smoke was getting thicker, and Zexor could feel his filter beginning to fail. His third eyelid closed reflexively to protect his vision, a distinctly non-human response. Logan noticed. "Your eyes. What the hell?" "No time to explain," Zexor said. "We must hurry." They reached the window, and Zexor carefully passed Gina through to safety outside. As Logan began to climb through, part of the ceiling collapsed behind them, sending a wave of heat and debris through the room. Zexor pushed Logan through the window just as a burning beam struck him from behind. The impact damaged his disguise generator, causing his appearance to flicker between human and his true form. Logan, now outside, turned back and stared in shock as Zexor's disguise failed completely, revealing his alien form, tall, with violet skin, 3-fingered hands, and large, multi-lidded eyes. "I knew there was something weird about you," Logan gasped. Zexor struggled to move, the burning beam pinning him partially to the floor. His atmospheric filter had completely failed now, and the toxic smoke was rapidly affecting his respiratory system. To his surprise, Logan climbed back through the window. "What are you doing?" Zexor asked, his translator still functioning. "Get to safety." "Not without you," Logan said, straining to lift the beam despite his injuries. "Whatever you are, you just saved our lives." With a tremendous effort, Logan managed to shift the beam enough for Zexor to pull free. Together, they stumbled toward the window as the fire engulfed the room behind them. Outside, Zexor collapsed onto the ground, his respiratory system struggling to process the Earth's atmosphere without his proper equipment. Logan knelt beside him, staring in wonder at his alien features. "You're not from around here, are you?" Logan asked, a hint of a smile on his face despite the circumstances. "No," Zexor managed to reply. "I am a researcher from very far away, studying humans, how we respond to danger." Zexor nodded weakly. "I did not understand why you would run into fire for another. Now I do." In the distance, Zexor could see Nalira approaching cautiously, her own disguise active. She would have medical equipment that could stabilize him until they reached the shuttle. Logan followed his gaze. "Friend of yours?" "Yes, she will help." Logan looked back at Zexor. "Will I see you again?" "It is unlikely," Zexor admitted. "My superiors will not be pleased with my interference." Logan nodded in understanding. "Well, for what it's worth, I think you'd make a pretty good human." As Nalira reached them and began administering emergency treatment, Zexor realized that Logan had given him the highest compliment possible. 3 weeks later, Zexor stood before the disciplinary council of the Galactic Academy, accepting their judgment for his violations of the non-interference directive. "Professor Zexor, your actions were reckless and endangered our entire research program on Earth," the head council member stated. "However, we cannot ignore the significance of your findings. Your report on human risk assessment behavior has changed our understanding of their species." Zexor bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Counselor." "You will be reassigned from field research to analytical duties for the foreseeable future," the council member continued, "but your work will continue to inform our approach to human studies." As Zexor left the council chambers, Nalira was waiting for him. "How did it go?" she asked. "About as expected," Zexor replied. "I've lost my field researcher status, but my findings have been accepted." "And was it worth it?" Nalira asked softly. Zexor thought about Logan, about his unhesitating decision to help both a child he barely knew and an alien he had just discovered. He thought about what he had learned about humans not just academically but personally. "Yes," he said with certainty, "it was worth it." In his new role, Zexor would spend years analyzing data from Earth, watching from a distance as humans continued to surprise and confound his colleagues with their seemingly contradictory behaviors. But he alone truly understood the beautiful complexity of their nature, their capacity to recognize danger, yet choose to face it for reasons that transcended simple survival. Occasionally, he would check the monitoring feeds focused on the small Montana town, catching glimpses of Logan as he recovered and rebuilt his life. Each time, Zexor was reminded of the lesson he had learned. That sometimes, the most rational choice wasn't the one that guaranteed personal safety, but the one that preserved something greater. It was a lesson he would carry with him for the rest of his life, a small piece of humanity embedded within an alien heart.